Hey folks, it's Janek Gwizdala. It's the Janek Gwizdala podcast, kind of an emergency, last minute, very stripped down podcast from the road here. Greetings from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Just got done with one of the best shows of the tour so far at the Outpost. Really, really fun crowd. And despite all of the fun we're having out here, the emergency podcast is here to say that the Euro Bass Day just got cancelled at the very last minute. In some kind of strange circumstances. That whole situation is subject for another video entirely. I'm not going to get into the ins and outs and the whys and the whats and the whos, but the upshot of this is that I'm going to be there in London. It's not like I'm just bailing on the entire trip. Both me and Ian Martin Allison are committed to some other things in Europe at the same time. The bass show fell right in the middle of some of that for me. So I definitely want to capitalize on being there and on the fact that I'm guessing people bought tickets, they booked travel, they booked hotels and have committed to coming down to London for some sort of hang bass event that has just got canned at the last minute. So number one, I hope everyone gets their money back who purchased tickets up front, and anyone who has travel and any of that, that's always the hard thing to get reimbursed for if it's booked in advance and it's non-refundable. Trust me, I've been on the road for close to 30 years now. I know exactly what that's like, and it sucks when something gets cancelled and you can't get your money back. So if there is any interest whatsoever in coming down and seeing both myself and Ian Martin Allison give a clinic, a masterclass, a hang, some sort of chat together, we don't know exactly what it will be, where it will be, how much it will be, like any of the logistics, but we thought we would definitely want to, instead of just bum around for a day in London doing nothing, it would be great to see anyone who was coming to the show anyway, and to sort of make our trip a little less of a disaster financially speaking. That was a big blow to the trip to Europe, a very big event, as I'm sure you can tell. So for that to get cancelled this close to it is, I'm just not going to get into it. That's going to be a whole other video at some later date when I've had some time to process it and think about it. But let me know. I want you to get in the comments on YouTube here and give me suggestions. I have things that came like right off the top of my head. I don't know the guys at the Bass Gallery, for instance, and I haven't lived in the UK for so long. I've never actually been there, but it's the first place everyone talks about when they talk about basses and bass stores in London. So that it was the first thing that popped into my mind. I was like, oh, I wonder if they host clinics. I wonder if they have a room big enough to host 40, 50, dare I say 60 of you. Who knows how many people could possibly turn up to this thing. Could we make it a reasonable enough ticket price that you guys want to come and hang out, and also that it makes sense for me and Ian to do it and to put in all the work and to make it happen this close to the date, June 1st, by the way, if you weren't aware already. Ian and I are going to be at Thomann Music in Germany the day before, and our plans were to fly after our clinic, come to London, and then do the bass show all day. So we have that whole day blocked out. The first thing that popped to mind, like I said, was the Bass Gallery. Maybe that's an option, but of course I haven't lived in the UK for over 2.5 decades. So get in the comments if you were one of the people that was coming to the show and are super bummed out that it's not happening, much like myself, and B, if you have suggestions of places that might work. We are not, Ian and I are not looking to burden anyone with logistics or financially or anything like that. We're just kind of looking for a space to host. So if there's someone out there that's like, oh, we have a store and we can hold 40 or 50 people and we do this, it would be great if we could do it somewhere in London that was cool, that everyone knows, that's a good hang, especially around a bunch of basses. I don't doubt that it would be a good thing for a store to have a bunch of bass players through the door. That never hurts. It's on a Sunday, I believe. Maybe that's I'm really trying to sell it right now, but all the things that have been flashing through my brain were like, oh, maybe Sunday's a slow day, and the thought of having 40 or 50 bass players come through the door when maybe you only would have had 4 or 5 in a day is perhaps an attractive thing to want to host something like that. Anyway, either way, reach out to me via the comments below. I'm going to send this to Ian as well once it's all posted so he can share it. And if you are a member of, is it Bass Chat, the one in the UK, the forum, maybe post this video in there. Let people know that we are trying to make up for the loss of this event, this last minute loss of the event, and do something as we're going to be there anyway. And of course, we're looking around, we're calling our the companies that we endorse and seeing if they would like to be involved as well, of course. This is just a very preliminary feeler to say, hey, we're going to be there, we would love to do something for you. Is that something you want to check out, and where would you suggest we do it? Okay, that's the emergency part out of the way. Now I'm sort of feeling loose. I was knackered before I pressed record, and I was like, am I really going to do this on my cell phone, sitting under this horrible lamp in a hotel in Albuquerque? But why not? I haven't posted a podcast in forever. And I should tell you that the tour is going great. The audiences have been amazing. We've played so many shows already. We were doing 2 shows a night in Los Angeles. So we played 6 full shows in 3 days. Then did this huge full 90-minute streaming thing on Sunday. Then went out to Phoenix, played a great show at the Musical Instrument Museum. Man, they have a beautiful piano there. Manuel played his ass off on the ballad. Then we were out in Utah. We played there last night. It's crazy to think that yesterday morning we were still in Phoenix, Arizona, and then we played Salt Lake last night, and then we finished playing Albuquerque today. And yeah, of course I'm going to get this out as soon as I record it. So tomorrow night here in the US, we'll be at Yoshi's tomorrow night in Oakland, California. The next night, I believe we go to Vegas, and then Sunday we're in Portland, Oregon, to wrap up the tour. So, yeah, just been great. It's been great to get the chops back. There are a lot of things I want to talk about in depth once I get back to the house, and to show you what's going on with the hands. One of my most recent videos that went out was about avoiding injury and about exercise. One of the things I realized I didn't put in that video after the fact is I didn't actually put anything in there without the bass in my hands. And there have been some comments on that video talking about, hey, it'd be really useful to know, what is your routine away from the instrument? What do you do to keep your body in good shape and in good health, and the posture and the relaxation and all of that kind of stuff? Well, a lot of the stuff, and I was just doing it naturally right there, very, very simple hand stretches. If you're only listening, now is the time to go over to YouTube and check out some of these. Just moving the wrist back and forth. It's really simple stretches that everyone does, everyone knows. One thing I do, I got from a card player, or from like a card shop, is this exercise where kind of working the fingers in and out, and that's a great one for part of the warm-up. I'll do that sometimes if it's really cold, or if I'm like, oh, I don't even want to touch the instrument yet. That's a good one to get going. And then simply having the wrists bent at right angles, something I was recommending that you don't do while you're playing, but as a stretch, having them bent out at right angles like this, down for 20 to 30 seconds, and then relaxing them. I should probably do this without a watch on. And then having them up like this, almost at right angles, for 20 or 30 seconds. And really good. The breathing, this whole thing is really important in between it. Kind of centered, making sure the core is engaged, all of these sort of basic elements of exercise and of staying loose. So yeah, there are a couple of bonus things which I totally spaced on putting in that video. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to talk about after the tour and how my hands feel after playing this intensely for a couple of weeks. We're basically 2 weeks straight, and with those double headers to start out the tour, actually means we get to play way more than 14 shows on a 2-week tour. Plus there's a video shoot at the end of it. There are all kinds of other things weaved or woven in and out of just the basic touring. So it's really interesting to me how my hands feel when I get back, how much more motivated I am to work on new stuff. Obviously I've been in the center of the band and listening to Manuel, and we're going places together. So that's really motivating. And we're actually talking a lot about music as well, me and Manuel, in the various car rides and van rides and moving around and sitting in the airport and waiting for planes and stuff and sitting on planes. It's a lot of sitting around and waiting, actually. But we're talking a lot about music and a lot of the stuff, the Neo-Romanian theory, the chordal progression theory, which I would love to talk about on the channel at some point, but I'm not even close to being there yet to where I can just like talk about it for 30, 40 minutes and actually give you something useful. I'm in the middle of really working on it, and sort of it's amazing to hear it on the piano and then work how to bridge some of that stuff to make it sound great on the bass and what ranges. So there are so many things that come from a tour, more than just playing, getting paid, being out, and then going back home. There are so many more layers to it, which it makes it so much more interesting for me. Like that's kind of, I don't think it's more fun or more interesting than the playing itself, but I would definitely say it approaches being equally as fun and interesting. Like what happens after the fact? Where do you go from the last gig of the tour? For me, I don't just go home and shut off and be like, well, we're going out again in 3 weeks, so I'll wait until then. No, it's actually go home and work harder than perhaps I had done previously to the tour, and get to, I really like to capitalize on that time when I get home, when my chops are in really good shape, the calluses are really thick on my picking hand, actually on both hands, but specifically like the more kind of the tone producing end of the spectrum, I feel like it's my first and second finger on my plucking hand. And when those calluses get super hard from playing every night and every day, I think we only have one day off this whole tour. So when you're playing that intensely every night, 90 minutes, sometimes 2 shows a night, the calluses get really worn in, and I get to make, I think, a much better sound than I do when I'm kind of just home practicing, because it isn't that gigging intensity. It's practice intensity, it's practice volume. Sometimes it's on in-ears, sometimes it's with the amp turned down low. It's not playing with live drums, playing with live keyboards, playing with a monitor, with an amp, with a room full of people, different size rooms. All of those things go into the tips of these 2 fingers and really make a big difference to what I'm able to do as a bass player once I get home. So I really like to capitalize on that. It's not like, oh, the tour's over, I'm going to take my foot off the gas. Actually, the tour's over and now I get the chance to practice all the things that I haven't been able to while I've been gone. Because practice time and time in general is so limited on the road that I don't get to work on this stuff. I get to think about it a lot, and I write notes and I make little voice notes to myself. And sometimes if I have a musical idea, I'll make a little voice note in the phone on a sound check, just to get a line down or a chord sequence or whatever it is. But then when I get home, then it's time to lay all those things out and pick and choose. Oh, I remember that. Oh, I'm going to work on that, and really get into it, because practice time is just so limited out here. And it's an interesting thing to switch gears. You go from practicing and preparing for a tour, then you go into the tour and you're doing it every night, and of course it's jazz and it's improvisation, and you're being creative and you're trying to push yourself, you're trying to let go and be honest and be in the moment. But that is also, for me anyway, that's also limited in some ways, because some of the things I've been practicing recently are just not there yet in order to play on stage in the middle of the gig, like the triad stuff I'm working on right now, for instance. And the triad stuff itself, played chordally, is way better now than it was even 3 or 4 months ago. But it's turning that into linear ideas with which to improvise. That's something Manuel and I were talking about today, just on soundcheck, and just talking about concepts about how to change that linear, triadic stuff, the chordal stuff, into linear ideas. And I will bring you as much as I possibly can once I get it. It's a fascinating sound. It's really fun to hear and really fun to play as well. So I'm looking forward to that transition. Much deeper conversations to come on that, and some guests coming up as well on the podcast, which I'm really looking forward to. We sort of me and Ian floated a ton of ideas last night and this morning, when all this news kind of broke that the bass day was cooked. And one of the ideas was maybe doing something with SBL while we're in town, or doing a live podcast together. I mean, there are a lot of options. We can do a lot in a day. And the last thing I want to do is be like, oh man, the bass day got canceled and well, that sucks, and then do nothing. I want to use this time and use it to the best we can, and being together with Ian. You know, he lives in Minneapolis, I live in LA, we're not together ever. So I want to make the most of the time we have together, and sort of hopefully make up for some of the disappointment I imagined of a big show getting canceled. And obviously we're not going to bring 8 other guests as well. I'm not calling everyone that was on the Bass Day thing and say, oh, you want to get together and do this thing without those guys? No, it's just going to be me and Ian. I don't have the capacity to deal with like 5, 6, 7 other people at the same time. So we're going to keep it lean and keep it simple, and hopefully by doing that, we'll do something successfully. So again, very, very important that you share this if you were going to be there. I appreciate it, even if you weren't going to be there, if you could share it and throw it in the forums and see what the feedback is. Obviously, I've got some leads and I will pursue them as I'm on tour here. That's another bit of a drag, that I'm actually on the move every day. 5 a.m. lobby calls, 7 a.m. flights, basically every day. 1 or 2 planes. It's like 14 flights in 10 days, kind of crazy. So I'm trying to do as much as I can. I've got the earbuds in, I'm on the phone, I'm crushing away on the text message and the WhatsApp, trying to make things happen on the email. So we will make something happen. What it is could depend on you making a suggestion. You may think, oh, but that's, you know, there are no silly suggestions at this point. As long as it's related to doing what I say we're trying to do, there are no silly suggestions, because even if the suggestion doesn't work out, it might spark another idea that we go, ooh, hadn't thought of that. And every few hours, both Ian and I are like, ooh, hadn't thought of that yet, because it's all so fresh. So it's in motion. Hopefully I can update everyone with some news in the next couple of days, and we can say, hey, you know what, June 1st is actually back on in a sense. And if you want to come and hang, you know, me and Ian do really quite different things as bass players. I think I'm really looking forward to the Toman thing that we're doing really specifically together. We were never slated to play together or do a clinic together for the Bass Day. We were just there as separate artists on the same event. But I'm quite excited to do the thing with Ian for Line 6 at Toman Music on the 31st, and why not do another one of those right after? You guys might actually benefit from us having just done one and realizing what works and what doesn't, so maybe the one the next day will be even better. But I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun either way. I know we both have a lot of similar ideas, and at the same time a lot of very different ideas about bass and about music, and of course, most importantly, different experiences to share, which is probably the most valuable thing we can do for you. So let's see, June 1st, it's on. Let's see where it's on, how it's on, and to what extent it's going to be on. Appreciate you tuning in for this very truncated, last-minute emergency podcast from the airport Sheraton, I want to say. I don't know. It's not that great. Whatever it is, and I'm only here for a few hours, so no bother. That's it. Appreciate you spending some time. Get in the comments. Share this video. June 1st. See you soon.